Hello, friends and family, acquaintances and strangers, my future children, grandchildren, and future me. This is hopefully the beginning of something deeply personal, meaningful, and fulfilling that will grow to outlive me. I realize the first people that will hear this will most likely be people who know me personally, but even to those people, I want to offer a side of me that you may not have seen before. To everyone else, I owe a lot of context, so let's go all in. My name is Juan P. Chamorro. I'm currently 26 years old, but by the time this comes out, I may be freshly 27. I am a creator, an entertainer, and an artist. I am a creator, an entertainer, and an artist. Normally, I would have phrased that sentence differently by saying something like, I consider myself a creator, an entertainer, and an artist. But this is sort of me mustering up the courage to stand for myself and say, no, I actually am those things, whether society accepts it or not, because I accept it. And this is my podcast. I want it to serve as sort of a half podcast, half diary, a scripted stream of consciousness, since I'm not always the best impromptu verbalizer. Yeah, that phrase didn't give it away. That sentence was definitely scripted. But anyway, I always wanted to start a podcast, but I never really knew what to make it about and how to sustain it. And being one of those lazy perfectionists, the analysis paralysis was very much real. I also thought, well, why would someone want to hear me talk and hear my opinions? Why do I matter? And I've reworked my mindset to understand that, one, of course I matter. I matter to loved ones, and I matter to myself. And that is precisely who I'm doing this for. Two, in a world where creators are encouraged by their platforms to more or less stay in their lane, I needed an outlet that would fulfill the deeper, more introspective side of me, the emotional side that many don't get to see, because I know that that is important. And for a long time, I felt that that was the missing piece in connecting with people. And three, to understand that I'm very lucky and privileged to live in a world where documenting my life, my experiences, my thoughts, and my feelings is so easy and accessible. Others are doing it, so why can't I? I want this to be a place where people who are interested in knowing the real me can go to and hopefully get an accurate representation. I understand social media and content is quote-unquote fake and controlled, but my goal with this podcast is to be true and authentic to myself. I once read a term that resonated with me so much. That term was social chameleon. That is exactly what I am. I cater to the people and the environment that I am in. Even with my close friends, I feel like I can only be a version of myself that is dictated by the established relationship. And I'm tired of that. Luckily, I do have one person who I feel 1000% comfortable to be myself with. My lovely, wonderful girlfriend, Lex. I definitely want to do this podcast with her, either as a co-host, a segmented host, or just a frequently returning guest. But I wanted to at least make this first episode, by myself. There's just something about being in solitude that has a different dynamic than even being with the person I love most. I want this to feel like I am having a deep, intimate conversation with whoever's listening right now. Those heart-to-heart, vulnerable conversations that tend to happen late into the night. I want to capture my thoughts as if you were inside my head with me. So if you're here, thank you. I appreciate you listening and hope I make it worth your time. Time is something I am very protective of, specifically my free time. When asked if I could have any superpower, what would it be? My answer is always the ability to control time. I understand that it is finite. It is non-renewable. And it is constantly underrated in favor of money. Not trying to diminish the importance of money, but it's true that you won't find yourself wishing you spent more time working when you're on your deathbed and you've run out of time. I believe in finding balance amongst all things. Too many times do I think people lean in towards extremes and have a very one side versus the other binary mentality. The truth often lies somewhere in the middle. And I think it's this principle that helps me to maintain objectivity while simultaneously allowing me to be empathetic towards others. I am constantly trying to read and observe others. Be aware and conscious of how they're feeling and what they might be thinking. Strangers even. When I'm driving, I'm trying to read other drivers and predict if my decisions will negatively impact them. And this all comes from a toxic rabbit hole of being a perfectionist people pleaser, which stems from obsessing over others' opinions about me, which stems from a fundamental need of being liked, which stems from high expectations and standards as a child while suppressing self-expression, which ultimately stems from the root of the problem. My mother. My mother single-handedly has the most influence over me and the person I am today. Remember when I said I was worried about finding a topic that was sustainable for a podcast? Well, I could make this entire podcast about her. But, Mom, if you're listening, I know we're in a good spot right now. We're civil. We don't rock each other's boats, and we're not after each other's throats. I don't mean to attack you. And I'm not saying there aren't positive effects that have come from our relationship. But I am making this podcast to be genuine to myself. And I'll be damned if I didn't acknowledge that you are the reason for most, if not all my insecurities. The anxiety I have to live up to my own standards, which are mostly just your standards, slightly tweaked and reclaimed as my own, can be debilitating. I understand there comes a point where, as an adult, you make your own choices and decisions and can no longer blame your parents. But it would be negligent to not examine and try to learn from the past. As I mentioned before, I have a lovely, wonderful girlfriend, Lex, who has really done so much to help me heal from all my past childhood trauma. She has shown me healthy communication, taught me self-love, and has given me unconditional love. Which is a bit funny because doesn't Sigmund Freud's Oedipus complex theory say we look for partners that resemble our parents of the opposite sex? Lex is the complete opposite of my mom. And she often tells me that I am the complete opposite of her dad. I like to describe us as being similar in different ways and different in similar ways. For example, as I mentioned, we're similar in different ways in the sense that we both have a parent who has negatively affected us, resulting in us wanting to be the complete opposite of them. For me, it's my mom. For her, it's her dad. And on the other hand, we're different in similar ways, for example, in how we talk to other people. I constantly over-explain and give as much context as possible to avoid the other person or people from feeling lost or left out, whereas Lex may get to the point quicker, respecting that you can follow along and are smart enough to pick up on context clues. But both ways stem from respect. And that's one of our strongest similarities we have. We treat others the way we would want to be treated. We understand that not only do we have to give respect to earn respect, but that it also goes both ways. And we are no exception to each other, which is why I feel like we work so well together. We hold each other and build one another up. The perfectionist in me wants to keep going, but I'm trying to be okay with not having everything be perfect. I've touched on a lot of things, just briefly brushing the surface. And I'm sure I left things out that I forgot I wanted to bring up. But I'm satisfied knowing that I can leave them for future episodes to further dive into. This was a great start to documenting where I am at this moment in time and turning it into something I'm proud of and can look back on. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble. Did I mention I have a fear of coming off as self-centered and narcissistic? Isn't that ironic? Anyway, thank you again for your time. Keep wondering, keep wandering, and go all in.